another barn burner. This is another clench your pearls, ready for some good, true from the heart. I got my peoples with me this week, and
Hello.
anything you want to say to the people? Hello.
That's all I got.
All right, y'all sit back, grab a drink. Here we go. Welcome. We're here on mutual ground. We are taking another break, another moment to just chat with you. I hope your week was great. Our week was great. We're just coming off the high of conference at church, and I just want to, just welcome.
Okay.
And Jess,
Hey, yo, how's it going?
welcome to the couch. Is it comfy? Is it good?
I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. Everybody,
It is a therapy session, right? No?
It's not.
No?
a little bit.
No?
A little bit of therapy. We all need a little therapy. Well, first off, thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to come and sit on the couch with me. And we picked a good brick this week.
It's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one. But before we get to the brick, what made you say yes? What made you decide to come sit on the couch?
I don't know.
It's because I asked, okay? And when I come to you and I ask you, you better have yeses for me, okay? Because I'm
I always
coming
got a yes for
from
this one.
all of you, okay? Okay. But I'm glad that you're here, and you picked this week your break that you wanted to put down on this path that we are walking through together. You picked the word trauma.
I did.
What made you say trauma?
To be honest, I've been through a lot of trauma in my life,
Yeah.
and recently it's hit me quite a bit. So I think it's really important for everyone because I think no matter who you are, everyone goes through trauma in their lives, and it's an important topic to discuss.
Yeah, it really is. I think that trauma is not too big, not too small. I think everybody has trauma at some point. They've experienced it. What would you say the definition of trauma is for you? What's the definition of trauma?
Oof. The definition of trauma, I think, would be anything that makes you... Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I just want to go with the definition, I did look it up. I did get Webster's.
Okay, all
I got
right.
Webster's definition.
All right.
And Webster says that it's any deeply stressful or something situation, like some type of traumatic. You can't use traumatic to define trauma.
Right, I'm like, it's a traumatic event.
It's a traumatic event. So anything that is deeply stressing to a person, which I think is true. The trauma is deeply stressing, and I think that we all experience different levels of trauma. I know that I've had plenty of trauma in my life. I know your story. We're not going to get into her whole story because
It's a big one.
we don't have enough tissues for all of you. But I do want to just kind of ask you, what do you think the world says about trauma? How does the world view trauma?
Oof, that's a loaded question.
Mhm.
I think nowadays it's a lot better than it was back in the day. I think there's a lot more help out there for everyone because, unfortunately, with how the society is these days, regardless of who you are, you've been through something, whether it was small or big. Everyone's gone through some type of trauma in their life.
So, what do you think the world pushes the narrative? What's the narrative from the world on drama?
The narrative from the world?
Okay. I mean, listen, I get it. The world's narrative. I think that the narrative from the world is that everything is trauma. Everything is trauma. Everything. You couldn't get in line. You missed the bus. You couldn't get the parking space. The world kind of puts everything on level 10 instead of, is this really a level 10? Is everything a level 10? Is it a gummy bear or is it a grizzly bear? Like, that's the scale. I think people have, everything is grizzly bear. Everything is like trauma, so stressful. I think that we have cultivated a trauma-based and a trauma-driven society. We are based on, trauma. My triggers, those people that say, oh, it triggered me.
Everyone's triggered by something.
Everybody's triggered by something. I don't feel like it used to be like that. When I was growing up, you suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah, that's kind of how I grew up, too. I mean, my traumatic event started when I was 5, so I pretty much lived my whole life with the narrative of kind of suck it up, because at the end of the day, I survived when other people didn't, and that's been my viewpoint. But I can see where you're coming from. Nowadays, everything in social media, and even the TV series that go out on are put out these days. Yeah, it's like there's so much trauma and so much drama, and it's just at a higher level than it used to be.
Do you think that people over dramatize things that happen to call it trauma?
Yes.
Yes?
From my experience, I've been in the military as well, so I have that background. And for me, it's kind of hard for me to bring it down to every other person's level, because there are some people that like to consider very insignificant things as a trauma.
Gummy bears.
Exactly. Gummy bears. And for me, I'm just like, but is it really that significant? Like, was there really something that caused you to have PTSD and all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in touching on PTSD, that comes out in several different forms, from the way that we behave, from the subconscious level to the conscious level. PTSD is something that is triggered sometimes. And it is for some people that do have PTSD, they don't even know that they have it.
I know for me, I didn't realize I had as much PTSD as I did, and I didn't realize what my triggers were until very recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you use, if you don't mind me digging a little bit? What was the thing that helped you get to where you actually realized your PTSD and realized what your triggers were? What was the catalyst? What was the thing that you used to discover this about yourself?
To be honest, I recently went through a breakup, and I now realize that my significant other was helping me with my triggers, and I didn't even realize that at the time.
Okay.
When my anxiety would get too much, like I've always had an issue with crowds, but she would always be like my security blanket. And when I didn't have that security blanket, that's really when I was like, I'm exposed. I'm out of my mind. And I had to reflect and be like, okay, what are my triggers? What do I need to do for myself to not make me get to that level of PTSD and anxiety and all that?
Well, anxiety, that's another, that's a trigger word for me, okay? Anxiety is my trigger word, because I think a lot of people are taking things that aren't necessarily, they know the verbiage now because of everything that we're going through, they know the verbiage to be able to say what they need to say to get the reactions out of people without actually having the thing. I think a lot of people, not to discredit those that have anxiety, because it is true, in my research, that 6 out of every 10 men have had a traumatic experience, and 5 out of every 10 women have had a traumatic experience. That's a lot. That's half of the population. That's just in the United States. I didn't do research past the United States. I'm here in the U.S. Sorry. Americans, we care about ourselves. Sorry. But in doing the research, almost half of adults have been through a traumatic experience, whether it be physical, sexual abuse, or some type of abuse or traumatic experience that altered them, altered their perception of themselves, the people around them, less security, more, it made them feel less secure, less, I just think, how tragic is that almost half of the population has been through some type of abuse, whether it's a child or an adult. I think that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when I was 5, I went through something, but it was very uncommon.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it just seems like how the society is with the violence and the anger is more and more people struggling and going through a traumatic event. So
yeah, it's
unfortunate, and it's something that we as a society really need to kind of get to the bottom of, like, why it's so sad that everyone has to go through something, because with my experience, and I'm sure with your experience, it's not easy to deal with that kind of stuff, and to realize that there are more and more people having to deal with PTSD and deal with anxiety because of other individuals. It's a scary, and it's honestly, it sucks.
Well, the world is hurt people.
Yeah.
It's a cycle that you were hurt as a kid, so when you become an adult, you hurt kids, or you hurt the people around you, you hurt others. And so it's a cycle of hurt people. But hurt people stop hurting people when they get healed. And they get healed by actually talking. I think everybody should see a therapist. I think everybody should take the time to sit down and talk to somebody. I think that is very important that we do that. I think time on the couch, not just mine, but on a couch, is very important.
I 100% agree. I know with me, I'm actually going back to a therapist because I got PTSD. I got stuff I got to deal with. And for a long time, I thought I could do it on my own. I was tough. I was strong.
Yeah.
With my family background, I grew up with a airborne ranger for a grandpa.
Yeah.
And so, you had to be tough, and you didn't talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
And so then I went into the military, and you really didn't talk about your feelings.
No, it's you're up at 4 and we gotta go. Listen, we got work to be done. None of this chit chat.
None of the chit chat. None of talking about feelings. But that is one of the most important things you can do, especially after a traumatic event, and especially even when years and time goes on, because you think you're healed from something, and then something 10 years down the line happens. You get triggered again, and it's like, you got to go back to the couch. You got to go back to talk to someone, because regardless of if you've been to therapy for 10 years, 15 years, you did it, you're healed.
15 minutes, yeah.
15 minutes. Talking about the issue is always going to help you heal.
Yeah.
Always going to help you heal.
Yeah. And you said triggers, and triggers can be anything from a sight, a sound, a smell, just to a phrase that someone says to you, can all be triggers that are indicators that you do have some form of PTSD, because it causes a reaction out of you, and it's a kind of fight or flight kind of reaction. And so I think just knowing your triggers is a big help. So we know the world kind of says everything is a trigger, everything is anxiety inducing, and for the most part, it is.
Traffic? Come on, especially here in Vegas, I will tell you this. Even a normal person would get triggered out there.
Excuse me, adulting. Can we just start with adulting is a trigger?
Oh, yeah.
I gotta pay bills every month? Like, I have anxiety. I have PTSD. Every time the bills come, my PTSD, I get triggered, and nobody's here to help me. Okay, making fun, but you're here. Thank you. I got one friend.
It's because I got one friend
big
too.
Crocodile tear. I'm gonna put that in post-production. Crocodile tear. So we know what the world says. The world says everything is grizzly bears. No gummy bears. It's all grizzly bears, and everything is a traumatic event, and you get to feel all your feels, and it's a traumatic event. Well, what does the Bible actually have to say about trauma and anxiety and PTSD, right? And
let's go to the expert.
Heyo. No, definitely not the expert. But the Bible does say that anxiety, PTSD is a form of anxiety and And trauma or abuse or any of those things, they all are events that take place. And once you become a Christian and you start to follow Christ, one of the things that is asked of you is to cast your cares on the Lord. It's one of the greatest things that we get to do is give it to God. Like,
oh yeah, I've done that so many times.
Hey, I'm broken.
I'll be in my car driving, just giving it all to God.
Yeah, it's cast your cares on him because he cares for you. In those moments where you feel anxious, in those moments where you feel overwhelmed, I think that's a big word that people use when that is knowing that that you have somebody who's listening and that can be there for you and can give you a sense of peace, a sense of guidance. A lot of people just don't know where to go or what to do, and that causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of traumatic experiences. And in dealing with that, it's not just to forget. It is not just to like, oh, out of sight, out of mind, but to actually really hash it out and talk to the Lord about these things. He cares. He wants to make sure that all of his children are taken care of mentally, physically, emotionally.
I totally agree. I mean, you know, I came to the church about a year ago now, so yeah. I used to compartmentalize. I used to put it out of my mind, and I was really good. And then, you know, I got thyroid cancer. I got my thyroid taken out. My hormones were all out of whack. My medication.
That's me on a regular day. But anyways.
You know me, I'm tough. I'm strong. No emotions. But, and then all of a sudden, all these emotions, all of these past memories that I regressed came hitting me at once. And what really got me through was talking to God and just, honestly, to be honest, I yelled, I screamed, I did all the things I, didn't want to talk to a therapist about because I don't like to put my issues on other people. Yeah. That's always been my issue. I'm like, I got way too much baggage. I go to a therapist. I've already been to a therapist. I know all the tricks and all the coping mechanisms. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, I'm just crazy. I'm out of my mind and I don't want to talk to anyone about that stuff. But God, because, He's there. You can yell, you can scream, you can do anything. And he forgives you every single time. Every single time.
And when you say that he forgives you, what is the feeling that you get once you get all of that out? What's that feeling?
Oh, it's almost a sense of just peace, relief, and happiness. Yeah. Because I finally got all the things I wanted to off my chest. I cried, ugly cry tears. Oh.
Good ugly cry.
Good ugly cry.
Who does not love a good ugly cry? Listen, if you have not ugly cried this week,
you should really
this month, listen, pause the video, go look in the mirror, think of that commercial, In the Arms of the Angel. You know the one with the dogs. You know it. Think of that commercial and ugly cry. Just let it out. We hold so much stuff in. If you don't let it out, it'll come out at the wrong times. And that's what I think those triggers are those things that you're not letting out, coming out at the wrong time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's usually to hurt others. It's usually to hurt others.
Usually for me, it's like I hurt myself, which is not the best. So,
We're working on her. We're working with her. We're trying to get her together, okay? Give us time. So, we know the Bible says cast your cares. We know that it says that you are not what you've been through. That's, it says that you have the ability to become a new creation in Christ, and that the old man has passed away, and that you're no longer who you used to be. Not to dig too deep into your past. You mentioned traumatic experience of 5. You mentioned thyroid, which is traumatic. Can you give us a traumatic experience that you're willing to share right now, and how you worked through that?
Okay. Let's go with the big one. The big one when I was 5.
Okay.
I've never really been afraid to talk about it. Because it's something that I've just kind of always lived with. Yeah. Always dealt, and I've honestly, when I was younger, I didn't like to talk about it because I didn't like to feel that guilt that other people would give me. Because I've always been like, I have a purpose because I survived.
Yeah.
So when I was 5, I witnessed a mass shooting that involved my dad. So unfortunately, I lost him and my best friend and a couple other people through that event. And to be honest, it didn't affect me as much until I got older, because my mom got me into therapy when I was young. I was always a happy-go-lucky kid. I never wanted to talk about it because I'm like, yeah, it happened to me. It doesn't define me.
Yeah.
But after I went into the military, that is kind of when my PTSD started, because I did combat training.
Yeah.
I was, so for me, how I got through that was honestly not even realizing it, but talking to God, because I didn't know it was God at the time.
Okay.
I didn't until I found Christianity and got baptized. But for me, being able to just be by myself and kind of get out all my emotions about it really helped me. Now, when I get into my PTSD episodes, because unfortunately,
they're not all gone. You're a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
We are progressing, not perfection. Okay, we are progressing, not perfection.
Not perfection.
Yes.
So, when I do get into those, when I start to feel the anxiety, or if I hear fireworks and I don't know where they're coming from, I usually put in headphones, I put in music, and I'm able to calm myself down.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, I have a good cry sesh, because I'm telling you, crying is sometimes the best medicine we can have.
And the Lord wipes away every tear. He sees every tear. And it says that those who weep may rejoice in mourning. So it's like in the morning we will get renewed and refreshed. A good cry and a nap always helps. Just throwing that out there.
True.
But that traumatic experience at 5, you were determined to not let that change you. You were determined to just be happy. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of faked it until you could make it.
I am the queen of faking it till I make it.
Yeah, you have to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and for me, my coping mechanism is always humor. I have probably one of the darkest sense of humor you can have. But, I always try to make light of situations. I always try to brighten people's day, because that's just kind of how I've always been. Because of what I've been through, and because I survived when my dad and my best friend didn't. From a very young age, I knew I had a purpose. Okay. What that purpose was, still working on it.
Still walking that out.
Still walking that out.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. But even in my darkest days, when I thought I wanted to end it all, and I've been there a few times. Yeah. I always, before I'm even thinking about that, I think of the people I lost. I think of God, and I think, no, I survived for a reason. So I got to keep going, because I'm not at my end yet.
Not at the end yet. No, you've got much more to do. You've got much more.
I'm only 28.
Gosh, listen. I am 30.
No. You're not a day past 25. What you talking about?
I am not a day past 25. Let the camera see it. 25. Let the dread swing. Okay. Side note. So, I am a little seasoned. But so we know the world says everything is trauma times 1,000 on level 20. The Bible says, give me all your worries, give me all your cares, and I will take care of you. What's the mutual ground in between that we walk between that? Because we know that we're not all stepping over here. Everything's a fire. And we know not everybody is just like, Lord, this is yours. Writing Lord's name on all the bottom of my bills. Jesus paid it. I'm not.
Jesus take the will every single minute of every single day.
Yes. So we know we're not doing that. And we know we're not over here in the fire. So what's that common mutual ground that we actually stand on? What would you say that is?
I would say going and getting help when you need it, because that I think everyone can agree on.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you've been through something that's been traumatic, or at least someone knows someone that's been through something,
Mm-hmm.
or you've been through something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a something good about how every kind of society has kind of swung the pendulum to where it was, don't ever talk about your traumas because
Yes.
That's
your problem, your bad.
Your problem, your bad.
Yeah.
To now it's like kind of swung to an extreme to where everything's traumatized and everything's this, but being able to get help when you need it, being able to talk to therapy, having that information on the internet to where you can see the signs and symptoms of PTSD and anxiety.
Let's go indeed.
Or research papers.
Or research papers, those smart, But I think the common ground now is that we're talking. The common ground is that we're actually talking to someone, whether it be a friend, whether it be a loved one, your spouse, but most people are seeking
media.
Social media has saved a lot of people. As much as I like to bag on social media and be like, it's the devil, but it is actually done some really good work in some people's lives because they're able to vent. I think the common theme amongst all this is you have to find a place to vent 100%. In a healthy way where you don't feel judged, where you're not having to filter your vent, that it gets to be real and it gets to be raw and it gets to be authentic. You need a place where you can let the steam out of the pot and be able to look at yourself through a reflecting of somebody else talking to you. But you need a healthy place to vent. I think that's the common ground, is we need to find that mutual ground of where can you vent about your trauma where it's not going to be held against you, used against you, or made you feel to be judged. I think that's the...
And you need an outside perspective. I will say that.
An outside perspective.
Add to that, because I will say the reason my relationship is no longer is because we vented to each other and we vented to our family members that were already kind of in the situation. Mm-hmm. And instead of going to someone that was outside, we
kept going to the same echo chamber.
Yes. And it just kind of spiraled to the point where you couldn't save anymore.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but it's also a learning lesson for me, especially because I bottled in a lot of emotions. Mm-hmm. And I got to a point where I couldn't bottle it up anymore, and I took it out on the people I should never have taken it out on.
Yes.
Because I didn't go find that outside source to vent.
Healthy venting.
Healthy venting.
I think that's what this boils down to is, do you have a healthy place to vent? Now, we know that you have to pay for mental health. It's not free. Anything worth having and worth doing is not free. You're going to have to put some skin in the game and actually really show up and do the work.
One thing is free.
What's that? Come on. Hit me with it.
Talking to God. Hey!
Way to come full circle. Hey. Yes. Talking to God. That's free.
It's free.
It's absolutely free.
And they're whether you believe in him, whether you don't believe in him, it's one of those things. If you just let it out, even if you're by yourself, if you're not even talking to God, but if you're by yourself and you're just blah, 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 blah.
Where's the word vomit? We need it.
Word vomit. Because, there's multiple times I'll be in my shower, crying, getting it out, singing, doing what I need.
That is the perfect place.
Perfect place. No one's going to judge you. I mean, I judge myself. We all judge ourselves at times, but there's no outside judgment.
Yes.
So...
I like that. Yeah. So the mutual ground is that we just have to find a healthy place to vent. If not to the Lord, to someone who is not going to judge, which the Lord is not judging, to someone who's going to keep their ear open and listen, The Lord always does.
Mm-hmm.
And to someone who is on your side and wants to see you healthy and happy. I think that's the truth.
The whole truth. And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
So help me.
So I had a guest write a question, but my iPad's over there. But I'll kind of sum it up.
Okay.
It was about her traumatic experience. So it was something about the lady was in a car accident, and from the car accident, she no longer wanted to drive. And if she did drive, she wouldn't go on the highway because, of course, the accident happened on the highway, which, where does the accident happen but on the highway? So she would only take side streets. And then in taking side streets everywhere, she got into an accident on the side streets. So she wanted to know how she could get over the trauma of accidents weren't her fault, but she wanted, I believe summing it up is that she wanted to know how she can get over that type of trauma.
Oof. To be honest, I've been there 4 times.
4 accidents?
And I still love to drive.
Make it make sense. 4 accidents. Okay, so here's the first question. How many were your fault? 0? Okay, then you're good. You're good. No. I'll still ride with you. For a second there, you was about to, I'll meet you there. Wherever you're going, I'm driving my own car.
They all happened here in Vegas.
Really?
Yes. When I tell you.
Okay, vegans.
Learn how to drive.
So how would you, as a person who's been through several accidents that weren't your fault, how do you get over the trauma and that of driving? To continue to drive, because we know you love to drive. So
I do love to drive. I think that helped me with my accidents, because I will say when they first happened, the first one I got into, I did have a little bit of anxiety. I still kind of have some anxiety on the freeway.
Okay.
Just because it gets very compacted. There's a lot of drivers that don't know how to drive properly.
I think that's everywhere. We won't blame just Vegas.
No, it's not just Vegas.
It's everywhere.
Just overpopulated areas. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, accidents happen way more common.
Yes.
So I would say for the person who's having anxiety, as tough as it says, get back on the horse, because the longer you don't drive, the worse it's going to get. Okay,
so pull off the Band-Aid, get back on.
And I would say if you have someone that could be with you.
Okay.
Kind of to support.
Okay.
That helped me a lot. Listening to music helps me a lot.
Okay. So find
something that calms you naturally. Find that coping mechanism and kind of incorporate it. And if it's too much for you to drive, maybe be in the passenger seat.
Okay.
For a little bit.
But still be in the car.
Still
be a part of this process. Driving.
Yeah, because unfortunately, if you gotta go to work, you don't want to rely on someone else.
Uber's
you don't want to rely on Uber.
Uber expensive.
And
yeah.
Okay,
so your word of advice is pull off the Band-Aid.
Get back on the horse.
Get back on the horse. Yes, you were.
Because guess what? You're alive still for a reason.
Mm.
You're alive for a reason. You did not. You didn't die. I know it's scary and it sucks. I've been there multiple times, but you didn't die. You're still here.
Yeah.
And you don't want to let something as unfortunate as a car accident, and now 2 car accidents because the person doesn't want to drive on the freeway.
Yeah.
Accidents are going to happen.
Well, we know that trauma does change behavior.
It does.
So I guess the key is keep yourself safe. Do everything that you can do right way. Don't be like me and speed. Wear your seatbelt, all that good stuff. Make sure you're protected as far as you can be protected. And then you say a little prayer for you. And you get back on the road, You get back out
At the end of the day, it wasn't your fault. Mm-hmm. It wasn't your fault. Yeah. So it wasn't anything you did wrong. It just happened.
Yeah.
It's a crappy thing that happened. But you don't want to let that crappy thing that happened
change your behavior, change your
life.
Change your life. Yeah. Yes. Don't let it change you.
Because you are
Don't
awesome.
let the trauma change you. You are an amazing driver. You're an amazing person.
And for those people that it was your fault, it's okay. We're not faulting you.
We're not faulting you. We're just saying
things
be better.
Happen.
Just be better.
Do better. All right.
Be better. Yes. Well, Jess, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sitting on the couch with me. I'm going to invite you back. You're going to have to come back and hit me with another one. I feel like there's more gold in this little nugget over here. There's more gold in there that we're going to get out. Yes, we are. But the common theme of today, the mutual ground, is find a healthy place to vent. Find someone to talk to. Find someone's couch to sit on. And
even if it's ours.
Even if it's here, come look. We got space. Look, I'll make space for you.
Always
make space here. Sit here.
We don't bite.
I mean, yes.
Unless you want us
to. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with us. In the comments, let us know what was a traumatic experience that you had that changed you in some way, and how did you cope? What was your coping mechanism? What did you do, and how are you now? We're doing a little self-care, a little check-in. Come on, check us in. All right. See you soon. All right. Bye. One more time.